Welcome to Bleav in Chargers, a post Super Bowl 58 edition. And certainly for many Charger fans, it pains them to see the Chiefs cement themselves as a dynasty, 3 Super Bowl victories in 5 years, 4 trips to the Super Bowl in those 5 years, and an opportunity to have perhaps the first ever three-peat in the history of the Super Bowl. But that is what is in front of Andy Reid, who said he is not retiring. He'll return. It's what's in front of Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and a defense that was so young last year, won a Super Bowl, and you could see them take it to the next level this year. And it just ultimately gives you a little bit of consternation knowing that, yeah, these are still kids that have yet to enter their prime, young men, I should say, that have yet to
Sure.
enter their prime, that are dominating on that side of the football, to go with Patrick Mahomes playing offense for Kansas City.
No question. I was out there this week and being able just to take in the festivities. The NFL, I mean, I tell you, this Super Bowl, it's such an event. I mean, Matt, the streets were packed. I mean, things were hopping. Being able to Mandalay Bay, down there at the media row, being able to see so many of the greats, great LaDainian, got to have dinner with LT,
Nice.
LaDainian Thomason. He and I and my son had dinner. And Orlovsky, who plays on Kansas City, guy had a hell of a game. You look at his games, his numbers, played up, bowler up, hammer down. Shout out Purdue. Play with my son. It was interesting because my son, doesn't play, jacked up his knee. And just being able, they're talking during the week, and just to see these kids that Kansas City brought in, like you said, these young men and a very young defense. But Spagnuolo, I mean, you look at what Spags has been able to do as a defensive coordinator. I know Mahomes and Kelsey and what they are able to do. It's phenomenal. Those two are going to go down as arguably one of the greatest tight end quarterback combos out there. Um, so it's we know that that's unmutable. But what's Spags? I think that you should have cut that MVP trophy and you should have gave half to him and half to Mahomes, because Spagnuolo, what he's done and how he came after Purdy and the different ways they blitzed him off schedule, kept him off schedule, the things that he was able to do, and the way that his defense carried him this year wasn't like Kansas City's offense just was lighting up the scoreboard. That defense, my goodness. I'll tell you what, Spags is a hell of a defense coordinator.
Yeah, it just, it's a cliche, but just the turnovers, and obviously Kansas City had their share, an interception from Mahomes, a fumble by Pacheco, but the offense had nothing going. And look, Steve Wilkes was doing a number on Patrick Mahomes and that Kansas City offense, which had really struggled quite a bit this year compared to years past. But at the same time, it's a muff punt. It's a bad bounce off. It's inches, right? They say when you think of a game of inches, you think about gaining, the line to gain and getting a first down or getting a touchdown. Well, it's also the maybe 1 inch of having a foot in the wrong place that led to a turnover, very next play touchdown. And now it's just like, a shooter that's 0 for 11 gets that open layup. And now I saw it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is what it's supposed to look like. And the offense, ends up taking off from there. I know there's a lot of incoming for Kyle Shanahan. I would assume, I don't know, of the 32 teams, maybe 28 of them would line up to hire him as their head coach if he were made
Right.
available. That's a little foolish to
He's
me.
not.
He's not going anywhere. The
No.
overtime stuff is, I think you could suggest was a little bit of a gaffe, and I think that's important to I think it's an important teaching point for coaches moving forward. When you have Kyle Juszczyk and Eric Armstead saying they had no idea what the rules were in overtime, and I know there's a reason why the odds looked like they did for whether or not you thought the game was going to go to overtime. It only happened one other time in the previous 57, but it's important to cover every single possible piece of situational football for every single game. And in the first ever Super Bowl, where we had these new rules where a touchdown does not win the game, but each team gets a full possession, probably would have made a lot more sense to defer and give yourself 4 downs instead of 3 to get that touchdown if you had to match. So I think that's something maybe that I would assume, Jim Harbaugh and every coach around the league is going to use as a teaching point. Hey, know the rules. We got to make sure we know the rules as a coaching staff, as players, so we know how to execute out there.
And I think guys know the rule. They just got to reiterate. And remember, shoot, let's go back to our year. You were there, Money,
Yeah.
where McCree intercepts the ball. All he has to do is go down. The next week in Indianapolis intercepts the ball and they go down. So sometimes when you see a mistake by a team, it sounds the alarm. And then the coaches say, oh my God, I'm glad that happened to them rather than us. And now guys are like, okay, dude, we know. Go down. intercept the ball. No need to try. Just go down, run the clock out. Don't
Game's
do
over.
anything.
Yeah.
Game's over. So you've seen that. But for me, it's simple. I always tell people all the time, Money, that offense counts as a third of the game, defense counts as a third of the game, and special teams count as a third of the game. You look at special teams, you gave a muff punt, even though, the guy touched his leg, or you supposed to just fall on it. A football's different than a basketball. I can roll a basketball. It rolls at you, you squat down, you pick it up, and you can put it away easy. A football, you roll it, it's going to bounce because it's not round. It's going to
Right.
give you different angles. So when guys try to pick that ball up, you're taught to just cradle that thing like a baby,
All.
scoop, bring it into your belly, just fall on it. And guys do that all the time. The moment gets too big, something goes and go haywire in there, and they try to pick it up, and it usually doesn't turn out well. But that right there, that's 8 points, that's 7 points. The missed extra point, that's 8 points. So you're talking about a swing of 8 points difference right there. So now you're not playing from ahead. You're playing now even, because now Kansas City, now at the end of that game, Kansas City has to go for the touchdown. You have a chance to win it and not even send it to overtime. So there were some definitely costly mistakes in spite
Yeah.
of the defense letting them go down in overtime and driving them to the field to win it in overtime to score. You didn't have to be in that situation if you just would have had your special teams buttoned up.
Well, we got Ryan Leaf waiting. Reminder, though, BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, pro and college hoops throughout the year. You got up-to-the-minute odds, stats, trends. You can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. You can experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. So visit BetOnline today. Become part of the team. Use our promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, BLEAV. It's a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, the game starts here. Well, let's bring him in. Number two pick in the 98 draft. Stumbled out the gate just like that. Of course, a legend on the Palouse up
Kind of like
there
me.
in Wazoo. And he's everywhere. He's omnipresent these days. I hear him on NFL radio. I see him on Good Morning Football. He's got the podcast rolling. You can get links to everything through his Twitter feed at Ryan D. Leaf. We certainly appreciate you coming on. Ryan, how are you, man?
I'm great. First big snow here. We just moved to the East Coast, so my son learned how to make a snowman today. If you want to talk about like innocence,
Yeah.
it was pretty special. My wife had to yell at me and say, "You got your 1 o'clock. Get in here." So here I am.
There we go. Well, we appreciate your wife for keeping you on schedule, Ryan. That's for sure. Just quick one on the snowman. What is this like? Is he doing the whole thing? Are you giving all that muscle and giving him a giant body? Like, what are we talking about? 6 foot, 3 foot? What kind of snowman?
I'd probably say it's 5 foot.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was a good base. I did the base, but I let him do the body
There we
and
go.
the head, and he started it, rolled it, and then we got him up. I put it up there, and he shaped it when uses the rest of the snow as glue. We got like 8 inches today, actually.
Wow, nice.
So we're packed in. They canceled school, so we're having a blast.
Right on.
Ryan, you're all in, man. Hey, long time no see, man. I remember those days at Washington, man. You guys were beating you guys with like, I think, a minute left. They're playing us in Fresno, man. And
Okay.
this guy puts this drive together. Trent goes down, we score, having a big game, and God, they get that big pass into the game. Was that not a hell of a game? Fresno State and Washington, that was unreal, right?
It was. There's a lot of great college games, that we got a chance to play in. I remember them well. Anytime we could win, anytime we could, compete, I think it was special.
Ryan, you look, you know what? Before we get to the Chargers, just as someone who's, one of the all-time greats in the history of the Pac-12 conference, is that thing's set to go away? We're here in Southern California. It's weird to think about USC and UCLA, and the weekender is gone. No more trips up to Cal and Stanford for these teams. Just kind of your thoughts of what it means to you personally that the Pac-12 is falling apart and teams are scattered, especially for Wazoo.
It's incredibly disappointing, to see a Pac-12 team actually get to the national championship this year too. I think speaks volumes to what the conference is capable of. So, I lay this at the feet of the executives, the presidents of the universities. ultimately they make the decision around a spreadsheet that's laid in front of them. And I can't fault them for that. I mean, their job is to make schools money. It's just disappointing. I don't think rivalries in terms of, Washington State are still going to play against one another. Oregon State. I didn't look at us going down to USC or UCLA as a rivalry. It was a game in conference that we had to play. So, ultimately this is where it's headed. It's going to become a national collegiate football league where there's probably, 18 to 22 teams in each separate conference like the NFL. It's not going to be run by the NCAA. You're going to have a czar. You're going to have your own media rights deal. And I'd say that's probably 2 years from now. So, it sucks that, over the next 2 years, they can't keep that together, but this is where it's headed. It was unfortunate last year to see it end the way it did, but, all good things, I guess.
Do you think this is sustainable when you think about what they're doing with NLI and how being able to pay guys $800,000 guys are getting? But do you think this weakens also the NFL brand just in general with everything that's going on? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think it alters the NFL brand at all. They're still going to get the cream of the crop, the best players that they can get. They're going to draft and they're going to put on teams. They're not. What I do think is I think it's going to help the NFL differentiate on who to draft. There were 2 quantifiers that I thought you could not value when a player was coming out of college to the draft. You couldn't quantify what life-changing money would do to you and how someone will deal with failure at the highest level. Those are 2 things you couldn't quantify. You still can't quantify the failure part of it because no one ever has been to the highest level until they get there and then struggle. The money thing is now very present, right? You are going to see how someone deals with life-changing money before they get to the NFL, before they go to a franchise where you invest even more money into that young man. And so I think it could go a long way in differentiating, especially at the quarterback position, who you seal with a first-round pick. It may make people move on from them in terms of how they dealt with money. I think it would have gone a long way for me to see how it affected me in a negative way for the Chargers and to maybe have second ideas about, whether I was a right fit to be, at that age, the face of the franchise. So I think it will go a long way to helping NFL teams. As for the college part of it, that's why I said the National Collegiate Football League, that's probably going to come in about 2 years. That's when it's going to be. It's going to be the minor leagues of the NFL. It's just going to be based in scholastic sports for some reason at college universities, which is odd and weird. And, they'll be going to class. It's just not the model that we're headed to.
Yeah, they want their colors, they want their fight songs, they want their stadiums on campus. Like you said, it'll end up being a weird marriage, but it will be the marriage that you have to have. Ryan, as we kind of flip it now to the Chargers, you always hear, the easiest way in the tournament is to win your division. It's been awfully hard for the teams in the AFC West to punch their ticket that way. Just what, I know you've been watching obviously the game and all the teams, but when you look at the Chargers, they got the number 5 overall pick. They got a lot of cap issues that they're going to have to figure out and restructure who stays, who goes. But if you had to build the team, you have Justin Herbert. If you had to build the team to take down Patrick Mahomes, like what do you need to try to knock the Chiefs off?
Well, I think they have defensive. I mean, I thought Tom Telesco did a wonderful job of bringing in talent. And unfortunately, the brand of Brandon Staley was to be, I don't know if he ever truly knew what his brand was. He was so up and down in terms of decision-making that cost him 2 years ago, the decision to go for it on 4th down in those games against the Chiefs cost them that. They could have been at the very top of the division. And then you have an instance where you play Mike Williams in a game that doesn't mean anything. I mean, these are all decisions. And I think the biggest and first step was to bring in somebody like Jim Harbaugh. I mean, I love this decision by Mr. Spanos and his sons taking the next step. I think you bring in somebody who has familiarity with Southern California, with San Diego, of course, in his day with the Chargers, with myself. And I like the way he goes about his business. He's a professional football coach. He's from a football coaching family. He wants a chance to win a championship. He understands that he's got the quarterback to do it. And now you have to, surround him with protection, and you have to do the things that Jim knows to be good. And I've talked to a few people around this, and I made a comment a couple weeks ago on Good Morning Football about a guy that they're looking at is Saquon Barkley, and everybody jumped up and down around the idea of the cap situation. I get it, but if you talk to any general manager, if you talk to anybody who's worked in the front office, cap issues are if you want to fix them, you fix them. Okay, it's not, if you push it, you avoid years, you do whatever, you kick the can down the road to win a championship. So if they want to get their guy, and I think in Jim Harbaugh's offense, Saquon would be incredibly valuable. He's going to cost more money unless you go get somebody like Blake Corum out of the draft, which is somebody he's very familiar with. There's a lot to go there, but I expect to see a very physical football team up front, running the football, and then using play action, allowing Justin Herbert to have clean one-on-one looks with his big-time wide receivers. That's what's going to make him so special. I really thought Kellen Moore and him were going to have a better connection. I think from the start, it was almost a lame duck situation going into it for whatever reason. And now you have a fresh start. And, Justin's going to be coming off the surgery. He's going to be as healthy as he has been. Hopefully him and I will get some golf in this summer, and he can lay it out for me.
Ryan, well, how do you change that? You're talking about Harbaugh and his family. I was coached by his brother down in Baltimore, and, know Jim well as also. How do you change that culture? How do you go, like you said, you thought Telesco did a great job of getting the talent, getting the chef, the talent that he needed to what is you think the biggest missing anomaly for success, and why not success?
You probably get this, and it's an easy explanation. It probably sounds cliche, but winning breeds winning. It just does, and when you just aren't winning, you aren't tested, and you don't know what to do in those moments. I mean, you look at the playoff loss last year. You didn't know how to close in those moments, and it changes things. And Jim Harbaugh is a winner, period. He knows how to do it. He knows how to get things done and what to expect from his players in those moments. And he's going to practice. He's going to practice that. Guys are going to know what winning is when they step on the field in Los Angeles with Jim Harbaugh, and how to finish games. And so for what we thought the AFC West was going to be 2 years ago, fell flat on its face again this second year. Everybody's chasing the Chiefs, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. You build what everybody thinks is a great roster. You still got to go out and do it, and no one's been able to do that. I called the Chiefs-Raiders game on Christmas Day, and after that game, everybody was so up in arms with the idea that the Chiefs, the run was over. And I just kept looking at everybody, and I'm saying, it doesn't matter. They're going to win the West regardless, okay? They're going to go to the playoffs, which is where they live. It's where they eat, and it's exactly what they did. So it shouldn't surprise anybody. It really shouldn't. And the fact that people wanted to, read their obituary, there's nothing I've seen in Los Angeles, in Las Vegas, or in Denver that's going to change that dynamic next year. Now, someone can surprise you, right? Someone could do something really, really different. And in my case, and specifically, I'm assuming in your guys' case, do you hope it's the Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh in his first year? That's what you're hoping. I know Justin has no fear going into Arrowhead. That's a rare thing to have. He doesn't. He has zero fear going into Arrowhead and battling Patrick Mahomes. And when you got a quarterback that's capable of doing that, that gives you a shot. That gives you a chance.
Speaking of that, I mean, the two of you have a relationship. You play the position. Perfect question for you, Ryan, on the spot. Charger fans on social media, I'm sure they've hit you up. There's multiple groups. There's actually kind of two. They want Malik Neighbors because we haven't had a fast elite wide receiver here since they've moved to Los Angeles, or they want Brock Bowers. They love this idea of Brock Bowers. Sort of conventional, well, it wouldn't be conventional wisdom. Harbaugh wisdom to me says tackle. If you're the quarterback, Ryan, you got Slater on one side and the number one tackle in the draft on the other. If they came to you as the starting quarterback, you want that, can take the top off wide receiver, the Brock Bowers elite tight end, or do you want that other tackle to pair with Rashawn Slater, and maybe you got the best bookends in the league?
Yeah, I want the offensive lineman. And I think you have elite wide receivers already there. And I get it. Quentin Johnston did not live up to what could be possible, right? Zay Flowers was drafted after him, had a great year in Baltimore. I still think there's a lot of great football in Quentin Johnston. I really do. And I know how difficult it is when you had a tough year and people are throwing a lot of stuff your way, but he's surrounded by some really great veteran wide receivers. Now, I don't know if they're all going to be able to stay together because of the cap situation and everything, but Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, Guyton, those are guys. Yeah. Those are guys they're difference makers. Okay. They are. And so I get it. Brock Bowers is a stud. I like your tight ends too. I think those guys do a tremendous job for Justin. He looks for them when he needs them. So I'm going tackle, and it may be boring to people, but guess what? Jim Harbaugh is going to be the interesting one. He's not going to make everything else that's going around Los Angeles more interesting than his eccentricities. That's where you're going to get your nuttiness, and I think that's a great place to get it from your head coach. Not going to get it in the front office. You're not going to get it on your roster. You're going to build the best possible roster you can, and that's to protect number one. And how do you protect number one? It's not by the receiver, because the receiver, if you can't throw it to him because you don't have enough time to throw it to him, it doesn't matter who you have out there running around. I mean, the guy's the facilitator to these great wide receivers. And I think that's why you'll never see the wide receiver be an MVP again, or ever. There's never been an MVP who's been a wide receiver. There's been a kicker, figure that one out, but there's never been a wide receiver. And it's because they have somebody who facilitates everything. Like if you flat out go out there and go, I'm not throwing, this guy's going to have a tough day. I double team. I'm not going to throw him the ball all game. He's not going to catch a ball. So I'm all in on picking the most valuable offensive lineman, tackle, anything to protect your franchise and Justin Herbert.
When you're at the quarterback position, how do you go through or make a receiver better? Quarterbacks, you saw Wes Walker, what he was able to do, Amendola, what they were able to do with Tom Brady. What is it that the quarterback has to do to get that belief, or get guys that are just average guys and turn them into superstars?
Well, if I'd have known that secret, I probably would have played a lot longer in San Diego. I can tell you that much.
You're the best.
I find that relationships, getting to know someone and how their mannerisms and their bodies work and go. If you look at the relationship between Kelsey and Mahomes, if you look at the All-22, half the time, Kelsey is not running the route that I think is schemed. I think he ultimately is improvising and finding whatever void. And Patrick Mahomes understands it and knows what he's going to do. Because, even for the novice eye, my wife comes into the room and she watches football sparingly and when she wants to with me, but, she'll go, she has the simplest answer for everything. Like, how does Kelsey get open every single time? You would think the guy that has as many receptions, maybe one of the greatest tight ends out there, you would cover him, right? You would put maybe one or two guys on him because he doesn't do what you expect him to do. So that's all about relationship. And so you develop a relationship. And I think Justin has developed an incredible relationship with everybody in that wide receiver room and continues to. There's a reason why he kept trusting Quentin Johnston last year. He knew what he was capable of doing. And he just is asking for more. And if the belief in someone, and I think this speaks to the Chiefs championship run, MVS was absolutely beat down all year long, and he kept trusting him. And he had a touchdown in the Super Bowl. He had the biggest catch to seal the game in Baltimore. Another big one at probably the biggest catch of the game at Buffalo. There's a belief there. There's a trust. There's a familiarity. And when you have a quarterback that has that belief in someone and that has that relationship, building relationships contribute to that. I really do believe that.
Last one from me, Ryan, so you can get back out there before that top hat goes on the snowman and he goes away into town. Derwin James, as a quarterback, when you're looking across the line of scrimmage, where are you most concerned? Because Brandon Staley tried to play him everywhere, and I know he can do it. I just don't know if that's the way that you should do it with him. Like if you were taking that snap, where would you be most concerned that Derwin James is lined up?
At the linebacker level, that's my biggest fear with him, because he can do so much from there. He can spin into a safety look from there. He can come down and kind of be a robber underneath where you're looking to layer the ball, and then he can blitz. He is the original Kyle Hamilton. He is the original, Trent McDuffie, essentially, which was what you want from these guys. You want a guy who is football savvy, who can get to the quarterback, can drop in coverage, can cover elite wide receivers, and Derwin James does all of that. So I understand why Brandon Staley wanted to do what he did, and I would expect to see something similar. I would expect to see him near or at the line of scrimmage a ton, and then dropping in coverage too. I don't. He's just so big and physical. It's amazing to see that he can run at that size when he gets on the back end, and that speaks to the talent that Tom Telesco put together there. I mean, there's talent everywhere, and they just gotta rein it in with the right culture, the right coach, and I think they've done that. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see this rendition of the Chargers step on the field next year.
Well, you can follow him. Like we said, get to all the things he's doing through social media, the podcasts. There are many, and the appearances.
And I started here.
Yeah.
Bleav.
Yeah, exactly. With E-Dub. So certainly appreciate you, Ryan. Are you, just last thing on the snowman? Will you get the hose out? Will you get a little water on there, create a little bit of an ice shell on it, or you just kind of let the snow do what it is? Do what it does?
I think normally, from the expertise of growing up in Montana, right, there would be a little. I'd probably bring out a bucket and just kind of give it a shear. But this snow today is about as heavy and wet as you can imagine. And I have a little fear around some of these trees falling on like electrical lines and stuff like that, and like cutting out power around these spots. But I don't need to do that with this. Sun's supposed to come out tomorrow, heat it up, freeze it. It's going to, Mother Nature's going to take care of all of it for us. Yeah.
He's got it dialed up.
Yeah, he's got it done. A nor'easter. I don't know if it was your first nor'easter, but a true nor'easter for Ryan Leaf today, and some great content. We certainly appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you.
You bet, fellas. I really appreciate it. Good to see you both.
Well, certainly, Lo, as we move forward through the offseason, Super Bowl is over. Today is what, the 13th? I'm leaving in 13 days to go to the combine. So combine is next up. Well, even before that, though, we're going to get a little bit more staff. We got Chris O'Leary now, the outstanding secondary coach at Notre Dame, who helped develop JOK when he was doing linebackers. And, of course, Kyle Hamilton helped turn him into one of the best safeties, if not the best safety in all of college football. He's now being added to Jim Harbaugh's staff, and it's an incredible staff. I think that's something that you heard Joe Ortiz, point out, and Jim Harbaugh point out. Hey, number one item on the agenda, we got to get our staff figured out, and then that way you can start evaluating players that are going to perform in the system and the type of football that we want to play when it comes to the draft, free agency, and everything that goes with that. But you had O'Leary, to all of the other, to Greg Roman, to obviously Jesse Minter, to Devlin, who was hired to do offensive line. I'm hearing a couple other names out there. I can't say anything specific, but just could not be more excited about one of the names that I heard that sounds like it's going to get done and is going to be added to this staff by the time. And you'll know exactly who I'm talking about, Lo, by the time this thing, but when you hear the announcement and by the time we show up here next week. They are sparing no expense, and they are putting together one of the most impressive staffs in all of the NFL.
Oh, they want to compete, and they want to compete now. And then you heard our boy Leaf talking about, hey, look, Saquon Barkley, that he's a big physical type of back, is going to be on the market. Derrick Henry's out there, going to be out there. So Harbaugh, like you've been talking about on every show. If Harbaugh, what he wants to do. He wants to have a physical running game. He wants to go play action. He wants Justin's percentages to go through the roof. And how do you do that? By having a physical, dominant run game. So the coaches and the players and the things that Harbaugh is doing, he's building a culture, and we know that this is some of the things that the Chargers have been missing and lacking, and this is what they want to do. And that's what Ryan Leaf talked about. Hey, look, Bring in this coach. You know his attitude, his personality, what he's character, how he's going to do this. And he said he is a winner. You've been saying it. We all been saying everywhere Harbaugh's went, he's won. But he's done that because he has also good staff around him to make sure they, implement what he wants.
Yeah, now Greg Roman, on the offensive side is the OC, one of the best run game designers anywhere in college or the pros, for that matter. I'll leave it at this as we get out of here, Lo. I think the one thing I want people, if you take nothing else away from this last bit of conversation, just listen to the quarterback. We all want the shiny toy. The fans want the wide receiver that can break the 75-yard touchdown toss. You want the tight end in Brock Bowers, that's supposedly the greatest tight end that ever played in college football in the last 10 years. What does Ryan Leaf want? He wants the tackle. Protect me. I'll make the receivers better. I'll make the throws. All I need is time. Give me the pocket. Give me a run game, because now I've got tackles that can knock dudes back off their blocks, and let's run the ball. That gets play action going. I can make do with everything else. Get me the tackle. And I think it's good to hear it from Jim Harbaugh, who pointed it out in his initial presser, like, you have got to protect the quarterback at all costs. That is the franchise. That is the engine that makes it go. He touches the ball on every play. Got to be protected. You just heard what Ryan Leaf had to say. You know how they do it in Baltimore, how they've built that offensive line with either, investing a ton of money in free agency or high draft picks, a first-round pick on a center. Obviously, Ronnie Stanley was a first-round pick. They've invested heavily there. And I think that's going to continue to be a theme as we work our way toward the draft and the way they're going to put this thing together.
Couldn't agree with you more. And you have to. You build in the draft and you build in the trenches. You build baseball. You build catcher, pitcher, center field. In football, yeah, you want to make sure you have your center. You want to make sure you have your quarterback, middle linebackers. So I think this Chargers, they're building from middle out. I love what they're doing.
Yeah, a lot of excitement. I know the Chiefs won, and that is no fun. But, hey, look at it this way. Why not be able to knock the champs off? They've dominated for so long. Instead of seeing the 49ers do it, how about the Chargers do it in 2024? Looking forward to next week. A huge thank you to Ryan Leaf. And obviously, there's still a lot of reason for excitement. Continue to watch the breaking news surrounding the staff and around all the heat as we get closer and closer to the combine and pro days and the draft. We're going to continue to bring you great content on Bleav in Chargers.